Stoughton from my house to yours. Welcome to another edition of EMS at Sea Level. I am once again joined by Sebastian Schaal from Luminovo. Sebastian, thanks so much for joining me. And on the back of some good news, you've just had a 11 million euro series raise. Tell me a bit about that and what the motivation for the raise was.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Paul. Yeah, so for us, I mean, we've been starting our whole venture into the electronics industry like around 2.5 years ago. We kind of kicked this whole off with our pre-seed round. It was in like March, April 2020 when we got some German Berlin-based VCs on board to really bring us from just transitioning from our AI service business into like transforming the electronics industry. And yeah, now after kind of running for 2 years, like having a lot of proof points on the ground, was like the perfect timing for us to go out with these proof points and show what we've built and like take in more capital to prepare for even growing our customer base, but also growing our product into more directions. And yeah, as you said, we picked up 11 million now, led by London-based VC, Chalfen Ventures. Super great exposure and experience in building like B2B enterprise companies with more complex acumen. Super happy to have Mike now on the board. And yeah, I think that will prepare us to really help move the electronics industry forward, bring them into the digital age, help them prepare for all the difficulties in the supply chain, but also a new way of collaborating and working together with their customers, but also with their suppliers.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating, and you know, the timing's everything in business, and you kind of started just as the pandemic was kicking off, and then you're doing a fundraise just as there seems to be economic shifts in the market. So you're kind of forged in the fire of disruption. You're kind of used to that, and that's what's been happening. That's been the backdrop for the EMS industry for the last 2 or 3 years. I kind of looked at Luminovo from the very beginning as these great minds that have kind of AI skills and all those things, and have chosen the manufacturing and supply chain industry to apply them to. And you've already got a product out. Tell me a bit about that product and the product roadmap going forward.
Yeah, so we kicked off, we really looked at the whole electronic supply chain basically from first principles and said, hey, like what is like the best contribution we could potentially do, and say, hey, the electronics industry from idea to market ready product. This part of the value chain is really where innovation gets created. If you can speed this up, then you can be a catalyst for innovation. I think that's really the motivation that kind of gets the whole team up every morning. And then once we looked at this, we said, hey, what is the part of the chain where we feel there's currently the biggest opportunity for us, but also like the most strategic point for us to really move the whole value chain forward. And we quickly would picking up the EMS industry, which is, I always say, the kind of the unsung heroes of the industry, the one who really do the heavy lifting, but like little people know the industry, know the players in the industry. And that was for us like a perfect match to say, hey, these are the ones that should really be our focus point to really bring them forward. So the first product we chose, in a sense, or the first application is really the whole quotation process for an EMS company, which of course has an embedded project procurement that's involved. So really, an OEM throws over the RFQ, and you have to be quickly able to answer how much does it cost to produce this board, like or this whole assembly or this box build. And because it's still managed for many people in Excel sheets, but it's one of the most business critical elements of an EMS's business, right? We all know how razor thin the margins are. And if you can just answer more RFQs quicker and you have a higher hit rate, where normally people are at like 10%. So if you can increase that just a little bit, then it has a direct effect on your top line. And with the embedded procurement part in it, where, as you know, supply chains are changing, digital solutions can really help you find those parts in the last like months, but also just better offers in a more normal market that can really help you maybe save 5 to 10% on your material costs. And if you trickle this down, what this can do to the profits of an EMS, then we felt this is like such a vital piece of software that's currently underpenetrated. And that seemed like a perfect first step to get into the market.
Yeah, and I think a really good product at the time when you decided to develop that product, but a product that has become even more important through that process as we've seen all these disruptions and challenges to the supply chain. As you saw the supply chain become more and more disrupted and more pressure, and you saw that impacting not just their ability to quote, but their ability to actually ship product, did it change the design of the product, or was the product ready for that kind of volatile market?
Yeah, no, definitely. There was definitely some influences we had. So one like feature that we like orthogonal, normally it was like some very like RFQ centric tool in the beginning, right? Because that's in a sense the job to be done. But we quickly felt that people were like using the tool also orthogonally to like have a list of parts that they're just missing. They're just using the automatic searches in the supply chain to get these parts find these parts. So it was easy for us to just build like an alert function that can help you search the whole supply chain, get alerts, and be the first one to kind of then purchase and shop. So that was like one change that we adapted to. But I think another thing was also for us to see, okay, if we are speeding up X amount of line items at the BOM, and then we are this one line item, the one that's always made to specification, the PCB, and that still takes 2 to 3 weeks, then you're not gaining anything from a real turnaround time. So that is why for us, an additional focus has been really developing like a new next generation like engine for the PCB itself, to be able to, at the EMS side, extract relevant parameters, be more like informed when talking to your suppliers, and potentially even getting this last element of the BOM really API ready to get instant quotations in, such that the whole thing can really, the whole turnaround time of the quote can be accelerated.
Yeah, and you know, if the turnaround of the quote can be accelerated, it makes sense that the new product introduction, when they win the business, can be accelerated because the digital thread's already in there. You talk about the EMS industry as being unsung heroes, which is really interesting, and I think AI has multiple opportunities in the industry. I think what's happened in the last year is the EMS guys have had to go back to their customers often and give them bad news, talk to them about lead times, talk to them about price challenges. Conversely, the OEMs have had to provide more security, more predictability, longer term forecasts. And whilst those relationships can be strenuous, they can actually make the bond between the EMS and the OEM closer. And we're seeing this move from a service provider to a much stronger and much more collaborative partnership. Do you see that? And do you feel there's a role for you to play in providing data to both parties that's mutually advantageous?
Yeah, no, 100%. Maybe to like pick up on your first piece, I think one of the main applications that we saw where AI can really help in that whole process is like cleaning data, because currently there's still the collaboration, as we know, is still there's file like old data at one party that's being exported in some Excel sheets, shipped over, then people have to clean up again. Same with Gerber files. So it's crazy to think that this has been the major application for AI in this context. But that also, as you said, means exactly that this could in theory be made redundant if collaboration is strengthened. And that's exactly what we have been trying to build to have in our system, since it's a cloud native solution, right? Where you have the ability to like have different access rights, you can share specific pieces of the data pie with other stakeholders to help our EMS companies. If they start to improve the internal processes, that's like a step one, that's great. But allow them to also build on top of this some form of a collaboration portal, where they can then say, hey, okay, I can then expose this to my customers. My customers send me an email, and then I have this created this digital twin of the project, where then also have my embedded costing side. But the first piece, which is not the cost, but just the project, I can share this with my customer back and say, hey, this is how I've understood your product. like here, these are like the elements on the BOM which are critical, and you can do this resolving of the BOM, which has normally been an export, sending back, highlighting yellow line. You can do that directly there, collaboratively, and I think that's like one of the things that we've also starting to move forward towards. And finally, by that movement, we also see that OEMs on their side are equally interested in picking up these solutions, because they say, hey, like now I see that my customers, like when I'm working with like a customer that uses our software, I send this back and I get a point estimate of what are the risks maybe involved in my BOM. I should do this way earlier. So why am I not using such a system to manage my projects, little bit like a GitHub does for their project? And they all use PLM systems and stuff like that, but most of them don't have this deep integration into the supply chain to really find these risks. And I think that's something that we see also as a huge area of opportunity.
Yeah, and that plays into that whole role of design for supply chain. It plays into design for disruption. It plays into that greater collaboration. And what we've heard from EMS companies is where they were discussing the idea of a glass factory 3 or 4 or 5 years ago with their customers. Now they're discussing a glass pipeline, and they're much more focused on the supply chain, and the end-to-end supply chain, not just within the EMS facility, but going right back to the component manufacturers and the component distributors. So the product's out there in the market. You've got several customers using it. What's the feedback been like so far?
Yeah, so I think in general, the biggest wedge that we can put into the whole industry is that we've been trying to develop this very user-centric with a rather very modern user experience in mind, and also with this idea that we can enable non-experts to use the tool. Because labor shortage, skilled labor shortage is like one of the topics continuously of the hour, and that's, I think, what the most anonymous, homogeneous feedback from everyone that we've seen, that people say, hey, wow, like it's so easy to use. I can start with it so quickly. I can train my non-skilled personnel to get used to it. And I think that's been the best proof for our customer-centric development approach. And then in general, right, that people are just excited about how fast the whole development has been going on, right? If you think where we started with nothing 2.5 years ago, and now in like 2.5 years, we've built like a solution that can really help us turn around time end to end, with a depth in the PCB space, with a depth now in the collaboration space. And I think besides what we have, I think most customers are just like very excited if we can just keep the velocities to some degree. I think then we have a very confident that we can really become one of the de facto standards for the industry. And I think that has been like super exciting. And I think there's also a lot of hidden opportunities, which some customers are starting to see. We talked about these collaboration layers already, but we've also like on the manufacturing costing side, we've also built like all the functionality in there that you can really manage the resources, like a kind of a digital twin of your factory. And since you're anyway calculating how much time like a certain board takes on a specific machine, it's just one more element to add, like the energy consumption. And then by that, this is basically the way for getting to scope 3 emissions. And I think that's going to be like an even bigger topic going forward, where of course the supply chain has to do their share to report on the part level, but with us, we even have on the quote level, where it's important for the OEMs to make green decisions, we can enable our customers to expose this to their OEMs. And I think that's not talking about that much at the moment, but I'm pretty sure that this is something where the industry has to go.
Yeah, and I think, although not many people are talking about it in public, I think with the German Supply Chain Act and everything that's going on, I think it's something that's being discussed in boardrooms, and it's something that will be an important part of the strategy in 2023. And the idea that you've built something that works, you've kind of proved that you understand the industry, you prove that you can make stuff fit, and and they see opportunities to build layers on top of that are going to create solutions for them that, you know, that give them faster reporting, give them maybe better traceability, give them additional benefits on top of just, you know, getting clean data and getting a good quote out there. I think that's that's hugely valuable. Electronica is just around the corner. We're going to be there in person for a change, which is great. It feels like a long time since everybody was together in Munich. You're going to be exhibiting there. Do you have anything special to share at the show this year?
I think it's just going to be for the first time that we have like all the elements I've just described. We can really present them on the stand, have people show what's really going on. We are going to be in Hall B1, 214. And I think it's just mainly to get in contact with everyone and also start additional focus on building our partner network, increasing this up. And I think it's just going to be a great show. I really hope like the Oktoberfest that's currently happening is not creating a COVID wave that's going to stop this from happening. But I'm confident that we'll get through this, and it's going to be a great show. Yeah,
I think it will be a good show. And from your point of view, being there and being sufficiently well known that, you know, maybe some of the EMS companies that are there can come and talk to you and say, hey, you know, this is a problem that we're looking to solve. It's not just about, with a company like Luminovo, it's not just a question of, do I want their product or not? It's a question of, are they the guys that are going to bring AI and machine learning into my factory and really show me some tangible benefit? And it doesn't have to be through a single solution. It can be through, we've got this issue. How can you help us with the data you've got and the data that you're resourcing and the machine learning you've got? How can you help us resolve that? So I think it's a huge opportunity just to find out what the market's looking for, as well as tell the market what you're ready for.
100%. Yeah, very excited for that.
Good. Well, Sebastian, I'm looking forward to meeting you there and having a beer. We will chat then. In the meantime, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.